Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am looking forward to this podcast. I have Steph, who is a nutritional therapy practitioner. Her Instagram is the Sober Rebellion, and she specializes in supporting women with their nutrition in sobriety. And this is a topic that really interests me. And I had her on a previous episode where she shared her sobriety story. So if you want to go back and have a listen to that episode, so you can hear a little bit more about her story and why this is her passion, go for it. And in today's episode, we're going to jump in and get some information about nutrition in your drinking phase and in your sobriety journey. And I'm just really excited about it. So welcome, Steph. How are you doing today?
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me back. I'm really excited.
Nice to have you. And I know you were talking about getting your caffeine fix this morning. Actually, let's talk about that before we even get into nutrition. So, people in sobriety often switch to coffee as their thing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, there's like so many ways that transfer addiction can go.
Yeah.
I think we're all just kind of chasing whatever high we can until we can like feel safe unpacking all of these layers or whatever. I don't do anything more than half calf, so I'll do like a quarter calf cup of coffee, something like that. But it's been an issue for me to like
Mhm.
kind of lean on that a little bit too heavily. And like you, I have a lot of like stuff going on right now, and like I'm still a human being just because I do
Yeah.
nutrition, like I'm not perfect. And so it's like when I start feeling kind of out of control, I can some of these like good habits that we're going to talk about today like go out the window even for me. It's just like, nah, okay, let's like check in and see what we can kind of dial back in before it gets out of control, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely. And I think that's probably so inspiring about you as an individual and someone that is working with women in sobriety and in nutrition, is that you're like a relatable person. And I think that's really important.
thanks. Yeah, I got all sorts of issues. So
I also have a big issue with coffee, and I will go completely sober from it for, a week, 2 weeks, a month. And then I will have one. It's like with alcohol, like something will, flick me. I'll be in one opportunity. Someone will offer me coffee and I'm back on it again. And I think it's for me, interestingly enough, it's like with alcohol being a social thing. It seems like coffee is the social thing, especially for sober people. And where it really becomes a thing is on these sober women's retreats that I have. So, like, I have a group of women in Bali with me right now. And every morning after I teach yoga, we all have coffee. and that's just how we bond and connect. So anyway, I'm on it with you as well. Even though you'll see sometimes I say that I'm caffeine free, it's all like an ebb and flow.
yeah, that's exactly my my alcohol story too. I would go like days, weeks, even months without it, and then I'd have one and I'd be like, "Oh, okay,
That was good.
let's do this then." But
I
I mean, there's like worse things that we could lean on than having a cup of coffee. And it is like, I don't know, there's just something cozy about having it, like you said, with a group of women, whatever, like we bond over food and drinks and whatever. I don't know. I think we can like lighten up on stuff like that and just take inventory and see like, are we using it, like using it, or are we just enjoying it after like a yoga class with some girlfriends or whatever? So
Totally. Okay, so my first question for you is, how does our nutrition suffer when we're drinking alcohol?
ethanol itself is a poison. So it's really affecting us down to the cellular level. Some of the main ways that we see it show up and impacting our health would be nutrient deficiencies. So not only does alcohol consumption deplete our nutrient stores because metabolizing alcohol requires a lot of nutrients, but it also compromises our ability to absorb the nutrients that we do consume. So it interferes with our digestive process, how we store, how we utilize nutrients, and even how we access nutrients and hormones. So, nutrient deficiencies is one, liver damage. I think we all know about that. Beyond detoxifying, the liver is responsible for hormone metabolism and regulating hormones, including blood sugar regulation, which we're probably going to talk about a ton because that's like one of the main things that we can use nutrition for is like cravings, craving prevention, and that kind of thing. So, liver damage, pancreas damage, like the whole digestive, like from the mouth to the like all the way down the stomach, liver, gallbladder, like the whole entire digestive tract is really impacted by it. But I'm just going to highlight some of the stuff. So, the pancreas also plays a role in regulating blood sugar. The pancreas also secretes digestive enzymes, and we need those to in order to break down the food that we eat into a way that our body can actually use it and absorb it. So that's like just another way that a nutrient deficiency could happen. The cell linings in the stomach and the intestines are impacted. It irritates our gut lining. And it's really common for us to have pre-existing conditions. Like prior to starting drinking, we might already have issues with like our hormones or blood sugar regulation and even like neurological stuff. So when we give up drinking, we still have all those underlying things. And then layered on top of it is like these new conditions or these new imbalances that pop up because of like excess alcohol use. So it's a lot.
Wow. And the blood sugar thing is interesting to me that you bring this up because this was brand new to me until like this fall was the first time I learned about like blood sugar regulation. And it was through my naturopathic doctor. And I started to learn that my acne that I was struggling with was due to spikes in my glucose. And there's a specific order that I should be eating my food to try and keep my blood sugar levels low. Now, or not low, but keep them like regulated so that they're not spiking. And of course, I'm not doing it properly this week because I'm like so stressed, as we were talking about like before the episode. I've just have so many things going on, and so I had a cake. I had cake for breakfast. It was someone's birthday, and like we had cake, and that was the first thing in my stomach today. And I'm like, okay, I know that I'm gonna like have acne tomorrow, but it doesn't really matter. But majority of the time I'm trying to like eat with this concept in mind. And I just find it so mind blowing because no one ever taught me that. I never learned it before until like age 30.
Yeah, it's like it's so important. I mean, even to non-drinkers, like regulating blood sugar is one of the primary foundations of health. Like
Right.
I used to, before I kind of started helping women in sobriety, I worked with women with like hormonal dysregulation and fertility and stuff like that. And we always start at blood sugar regulation because just like you said, you're like, oh, my acne because of this blood sugar thing. But it's true. It has this whole cascade of downstream effects, especially with hormones, but also with even like our gut health. And then you have gut health tying to acne and immune function and neurotransmitter production. And so, I mean, I think what's so complicated and difficult to understand is that like typical like in Western medicine we're usually looking at like, oh, you have a hormone problem, so we're going to do like hormonal birth control instead of looking at the entire system and what's contributing to that hormonal imbalance or whatever is going on. It's a little short-sighted to like deal with everything as an individual system where it's like acne is the problem, it's skin. Okay, it's on the skin, but like there's other stuff going on that's creating this, that's making the skin like kind of scream at you to say, hey, I'm unhappy about something, look at me. And with skin, it's like that's a very safe place for the body to show that it's pissed off.
Okay, going into blood sugar. So like how does one, if someone's listening to this and they're like, how do I regulate my like glucose levels? What would be some of the tips that you would give someone?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do, and it's super duper boring. Like a lot of the stuff that works in nutrition therapy is really, really boring. And so it's just like not sexy to advertise. Um, but there's a lot you can do. And some signs that you might have these blood sugar swings would be like feeling like that hangry in between meals, big energy or mood fluctuations, headaches, feeling kind of dizzy, like that kind of like actually low blood sugar kind of mimics having too much alcohol in some ways, where you just start feeling kind of like dull senses and stuff like that. So ways that you can kind of help stabilize your blood sugar and support your hormone health would be always eat breakfast within an hour of waking up. That's like the most boring recommendation and by far like the most important thing I can recommend to people. And making sure it has a good amount of protein in it. I've read all of these like research, like meta-analyses where they gather a bunch of stuff done on the importance of breakfast and blood sugar regulation and stuff. And they're all like, okay, shift a lot of your energy, a lot of your calories to your first second meal of the day. You know, our hunger hormones and stuff kind of get thrown off, like all that stuff we talked about before with how alcohol impacts us, our physiology. So it can take some work to like get used to having a breakfast, and a breakfast before coffee is really important. And I would say like 25 to 30 grams of protein in every meal, high quality animal protein, and then eating regularly. So just checking in with yourself every 3 to 4 hours and thinking, instead of, am I hungry? Ask the question, do I feel like eating? And then you can kind of, our hormonal cues for what we need to eat, what we feel like eating, that kind of thing is really disrupted with alcohol use. And so following this template for a little while the body kind of comes back online can be really valuable. So eating breakfast, eating 25 to 30 grams of protein in every meal, eating every 3 to 4 hours. Don't eat lonely carbs. Your cake for breakfast. I mean, fine. But yeah, I'm sure that you felt kind of like blah at some point today until you got a little more food in your body. So including fat, protein, fiber with your carbohydrates, that's a really nice way to keep it nice and stable, your blood sugar. And then non-food, sleep, like increasing the quality of your sleep and quantity of your sleep. I know that's a struggle for a lot of people, but sleep will impact your blood sugar and blood sugar will impact your sleep. So it's kind of this like cyclical thing. And movement. Yoga is wonderful because it helps reduce stress and it builds muscle and strength, and you get like the meditative benefits and like being present with your body. But most people can commit to walking 10 minutes a few times a day. Like walking is good before or after a meal. Lifting weights, like putting on muscle, is an excellent way to regulate blood sugar and excellent for hormone regulation. And then reducing stress. Again, like super boring, we all know it, but at some point we have to kind of advocate for ourselves and look at places where we can just let some stuff go. Like sometimes we just, a lot of women I come across in my practice are these like high achieving, like super motivated people that take on everything. And it's like, it's a battle to get them to like look at their lives and have an honest evaluation and be like, seriously, what is the worst thing that will happen if you stop doing this one thing that will open up all the space in your calendar? So those are some things you can do.
Thanks for sharing that. And I love how some of the things that you mentioned are not even like food related, like things about weightlifting and sleep and regular exercise, because I think we don't even think of that sometimes as being related to something like blood sugar level. And obviously it is. It's a full kind of picture of life.
I would say, even though I work in nutrition, like a lot of what I do is not even food related. A lot of it is this lifestyle mindset kind of thing where it's like, okay, you know that you need to eat like a big breakfast or something, or you need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. But there's like, sometimes there's just this mental stuff that goes on that makes it really hard to follow through on that kind of stuff. So yeah, it isn't all about the food. I mean, that's why I didn't say, I mean, I'm like, yeah, add in protein, add in these fats and fiber and stuff, but I'm not like, give up the cake or give up anything, because that usually just ends up being a little bit harmful in the long run because we get all like bingy around these foods that we give up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. This is all so interesting to me because I This is what I see a lot, is that I feel like we have this idea of what is healthy. And there's been this idea to us that like smoothie bowls and acai bowls are like, the healthy breakfast. And that was what I was eating like every day when I first got to Bali, because that to me, it somehow has been branded as like healthy, And then I learned that I was eating a meal with zero protein, and it was just so much fruit and so much sugar, and then sparking this spike in my blood sugar, and then this blood sugar crash, and then leading me to have acne. And it was so interesting because the shift I had to make was just put protein in every meal, like put protein in my breakfast. And so like I eat like beans for breakfast. And if I can't, I am mostly vegan, but if I am out somewhere and I can't find a vegan protein, I would rather have animal meat than have a smoothie bowl now, because I know how the smoothie bowl is going to make me feel later in the day. Like, just like you said about the cake, which by the way, it was someone's birthday. I don't normally do cake for breakfast, but just like you said, it's the same thing. It's like having a sugar spike first thing in the morning. That's the first thing in your stomach. And it just sets you up for a day of like that's probably why later today I was like so exhausted, so hungry, was like, I need to eat before this podcast, And so yeah, I've just learned so much about these little things. And so I think it's fascinating.
So a lot of people come to me and they'll be thinking like, oh, I already eat healthy, but I'm not feeling better. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by healthy? Healthy according to who? Like who is telling you that this is healthy? Because I mean, I was just talking, I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but like the field of nutrition science is really new, and like we like to pretend like we know more than we really do. And so like that's why the recommendations are pretty boring, and when you think about like statistics and research and whatnot, like you can find a paper or a study or whatever to support whatever you want it to. Like you can find industry experts who will say like vegan is the best diet. You'll find them saying carnivore is the best diet, and you'll find everything in between. And so, I mean, it really is like awesome that you're learning how to tune into how your body is feeling when you eat certain things, because that's really the key to unlocking all of this. Like I give this template, like what we talked about, like eating every 3 to 4 hours and proteins and breakfast and whatnot. And that's just to kind of get the body in a place where it feels safe and properly nourished and properly fueled. But really feeling safe is the important thing. And then you can kind of customize from there and be like, okay, well, I want to do more like vegan proteins or whatever. And then you can kind of check in and see how you feel with that. And then I don't want to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Like that feels like too much food for me, or doesn't feel like enough food for me. Like, how can I adjust this? Or I'm still getting late night sugar cravings. Like, let me look back over my day and see, oh, did I really did I have, coffee before I had breakfast? Or did I not move my body? Did I not hydrate? Did I not sleep well last night? Like there's so many things that can contribute to that. And so instead of approaching it like with judgment and feeling like, oh my God, I shouldn't have these cravings, or I shouldn't be eating these sweets late at night, or whatever it is, just kind of approaching it with this curiosity that, okay, like I'm learning, I'm figuring this out, I'm figuring out what works for me and what works for me right now, because that can change over time. Like it can change for women, like throughout our cycles in the month. It can change like as we enter our 30s, as we enter our 40s, as we enter more of like our menopausal years. Like this stuff change if we become mothers, if there's a huge stressor in our life, something like that. It's like, so yeah, I like recommend this template, but what I do when I work with people is I do try to get them to like let their body be the guide and learn how to tune in. And because like we're all kind of victims of diet culture, we're used to something on the outside telling us how much we should eat and when we should eat and all of that kind of thing, that we just forget that our body already knows. Like it already can tell us. Like people who crave chocolate like in a crazy way, I don't want to say crazy, but they're like always needing the chocolate. It's like, well, chocolate's rich in magnesium. You might just have a magnesium deficiency. Like there's all of these like beautiful little messages that we can get from our body if we can just really tap into that intuition without the judgment and be like, what is it trying to tell me right now? how can I approach it with curiosity?
That's so interesting. So I was wondering, and I think you've kind of already answered this, but another question I had for you is what would you recommend for someone to be eating in their initial days of withdrawal or, recovery on an alcohol-free journey? Would there be anything specifically different that you would recommend?
Well, in the beginning, I don't recommend doing like too much too soon or
Yeah.
making any like huge shifts. Like every day you go without alcohol, like that is the most important part. And I wouldn't do anything to like compromise that. I would say eating regularly is the most important thing. I wouldn't worry too much about like the protein, fat, all of that stuff. I mean, yes, great, that will help with sugar cravings, but I also don't think that kind of using sugar to get over the first or caffeine or whatever, to get over like the initial, I don't know, couple weeks or whatever, like the really, really hard part where you're kind of going through that withdrawal and you're not really feeling better yet. I wouldn't want someone to like approach it and feel like, okay, I have to give up alcohol. Now I have to like cook food or whatever. Cause like I just think it's more important to like take it easy in the beginning. And if you're like ordering takeout or eating frozen meals or whatever, that's
Mm.
fine. Like by far the most important thing is eating regularly, like eating that every 3 to 4 hours if you can tolerate it. And just know that the body is incredibly resilient. Like most of us, like the kind of health issues or damages that we talked about, like right in the beginning, like those are all true, but like the body will repair. Like when you give it the fuel it needs, the body will repair. Most of us, like for most of us, the damage that's done to our liver, pancreas, our brain, our gut, whatever, like that'll restore. And so, I would say just be like really patient with yourself. Try to eat regularly so your body at least has the energy it needs in those early days. Like the calories themselves are going to be really important because there's just so much repair going on under the hood. There's so many like changes going on right when you give up drinking, even if you're not a daily drinker. There's just so much that goes on with that. So if you have to do one thing, it's eat regularly. Like that's the one really, really important thing. If you want to level that up, then make sure you're getting a lot of protein, especially with breakfast, but with every meal. And I would stop at that and address nutrition will be there for you when you're a little more confident and comfortable in sobriety.
That's so true. And, for me, nutrition just came naturally to me early day, like in my early days of sobriety. I was just feeling better. I just started eating better, started cooking for myself. Actually, the funny thing is, nutrition was going really well for me. And then I lost it along the way as I started my business. And I think it was because I was just like so stressed about starting my business that I stopped, taking care of myself and cooking things. And it totally ebbs and flows for me like all things. But, I always know that I'm feeling better when I'm cooking my own food.
Yeah, and I think you have like a really healthy mindset with it too, because I see these people who are like, they get all excited about being sober and they're like riding the pink cloud and they're like, what can I do now? And then it like
Mhm.
turns into finding some new like kind of restrictive diet or lifestyle and then like going after that with the passion of someone who has an addictive personality, and it becomes like the new thing where I'm with you. Like I think it's okay for it to ebb and flow, and as a business owner myself, I get it. Like sometimes our business becomes so exciting and like front and center that it's just I get excited, and sometimes it's hard to like do the things that I know keep me
Totally.
healthy. So, I mean, I get it. Like I said, I'm not perfect either. Like stressing never helped anyone be healthier. So, if you're stressing about your food or stressing about the fact that you're not like eating in a way that makes you feel your best, like that's still okay. Like it's your body's going to be fine. It has nutrient stores that it can dip into. You can replenish them when you can. Like we're fine. you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, I love that approach. I love how it's like it's so, I don't know, just so like compassionate and open-minded and not rigorous, which I think is so important.
It's easy to kind of do these like 30-day challenges or whatever, but I mean, I'm really in it for like helping people develop health promoting behaviors, like not this like instant gratification, quick weight loss, whatever. I'm like, how can we like ebb and flow with how life works? How can you know, sure, like restore your body's health and rebalance the stuff that needs that kind of support, but do it with a mindset that like one day, one week, one month, like that's not going to make or break your health over the course of a lifetime, you know?
Right.
So how can we ebb and flow with that? How can we make this sustainable and practical, like practical with what you have going on right now? Like it might not be the right time for like you specifically, Alex, to like be cooking every single meal from scratch. Like that just might not work for you. So like how can we make better decisions like that will like support you and how you want to feel, but without taking all of that time in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Just making it like
Totally.
really practical.
Mhm. I have a question for you. Well, speaking of like cooking and different things, okay, so my naturopath recommended removing gluten from my diet for my mental health. And I think that was more, less related to my sobriety journey, more related to like my mental health, my bipolar disorder. But I was just curious, like, is the removal of gluten something that you would recommend, or like, what are your thoughts on gluten?
So like obviously I'm not like super dogmatic when it comes to
Yeah.
like food. I approach it from the beginning with like an adding in approach.
Yeah.
It's highly individual for gluten. I'm also not the kind of person who believes like you can't have gluten sensitivity unless you have celiac. Because like I don't have celiac, but I know gluten impacts me and I feel so much better when I don't eat it. But it really is an individual thing because some people have
Yeah.
like a complicated history with eating disorders, and restricting any food could like even something like gluten, removing gluten is pretty easy these days, you know what I mean? Like you don't really feel like you're missing out, but that can send people into like a, you know, kind of a spiral that stresses them out more, or brings back these old feelings of like restrict binge cycles and stuff like that. But then I have clients that do it like that, that I do have them remove gluten sometimes for inflammation reasons, like if they get a lot of joint pain and stuff like that. um and they do really well with it, they feel better. And then I'll mention like I like sometimes I'm not sure if it's like removing the gluten itself that helps me, or if it's the fact that not having the stuff with gluten in it opens up the space on my plate to fill with other things.
Mm,
So like,
that's so interesting.
yeah, because like I think of it when I eat like a, you know, like a sandwich, but it would be in like over lettuce, like with all of these other vegetables in it. So it's like a sandwich salad or something. Like my husband made gyros last night for dinner, and I didn't have the pita bread. I just had it like a big bowl of like lettuce and onions and
Right.
like all of cucumber and tomato and all of the stuff where it's like I could have put that in the pita, but it would have been like a little bit of all of that stuff in the big pita. Instead, I have this huge bowl. So I'm like, I don't always know if it's the gluten itself or just the fact that like if you're not having, you know, wheat pasta and you're having like a lentil pasta or like a chickpea, whatever, and that's just like, oh, like has more fiber than wheat. And that makes, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it's the
Totally.
gluten itself or if it's like what you're having instead of that, but I do like it feels so easy to remove that it is something that I will try with clients from time to time. And then we try to reintroduce it later.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the person. Has it helped you?
Oh my God, tremendously. Although right now I'm eating it this week I because I end up in these weird situations where I'm working on yoga retreats with people in town, and it depends on where I am. Like when I choose my own yoga retreat sites, I make sure that they can accommodate my gluten-free diet. But at the place that I'm at right now, it's not so easy. And I'm noticing myself being like more stressed and more anxious. But when I'm off it, it massively helps with like my mood stabilization. And as you say, it was pretty easy. Like if I'm cooking for myself or even if I'm eating out, I make sure that I'm in restaurants where they've marked GF on the menu, like gluten free. I also wanted to share that it's so interesting you bring up that how it can be triggering for people and it can be challenging for people who have a restrictive diet history. Because when I started talking about my nutrition shifts, which were mostly for my acne and my bipolar disorder, I was trying to get off my bipolar meds, and I did successfully get off them. And when I was talking about this, there were people in my community who were offended by it and people who ended up leaving because they thought that I was promoting like restrictive diets, and I was like, it's really not coming from a place of body image or body size. I don't even know what my weight is. I don't even own a scale. I haven't weighed myself this entire year. It's coming from a space of like, how can I clear my skin? How can I get off these medication? And like, unfortunately, some people have such a strong history with it that it really was triggering for them. And I just tried my best to keep it as like neutral and inclusive and as least triggering in the way that I could. But ultimately I find that whenever the conversation of nutrition comes up, there will probably be some people who receive it in a way based on kind of like our own history and our own story, and there's nothing that I could do to change that, I think.
Yeah, it's really hard. And then it's like food is just so like emotionally charged, which is it really doesn't have to be. Like I don't feel like it should be. I don't really like saying should, but it should just kind of be neutral in our minds, but we all have these deep, deep histories with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like live in a larger body. Like I'm not a tiny person, but I'm still straight sized. And I have all of this stuff. And then
Yeah.
people like it's just like exponential for people who, have to go through the world in a larger body that the world just isn't set up for them. And it's a really emotionally charged topic. I have my own disordered eating past, so I am really sympathetic to it. And it's all in the headspace, like how you're approaching removing gluten, how you're approaching removing animal products. Like it seems like you have, like, I don't believe that you would let yourself feel terrible for the sake of like how you're aligning with your diet. Like if you started not feeling well, I feel like you would be like, do I maybe need to add in some fish like a couple times a
Yeah.
week, or something that feels like good for like all of the reasons why you're like going vegan or whatever. Like just not getting too hung up on that kind of stuff. And yeah, not approaching it from a place of restriction, but how can I feel my best? And that's something that I'm still kind of working through. Like the gluten's pretty easy. I tried to reintroduce it. It went terribly. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like that again. And it was just like with alcohol, like, I don't want to feel like that again, how I felt when I drank alcohol. But some things are more loaded. Like I have more trouble with dairy because it's so delicious. And I don't think it makes me feel well. But like mentally, I'm not ready to cut it out yet because I still have that diet culture kind of thing. And I think I'm moving in the right direction. Like eventually I'll get tired of like I get acne when I have too much dairy. My digestion gets kind of wonky, whatever. And like I think I'm almost there where like I can cut it out and see how I feel without it feeling like a restriction, more feeling like an experiment or, just like kind of testing to see what works in my body. But I'm sorry, like those people left or whatever, but it can be really triggering. I get triggered by certain things still too. And I mean, I work in this space, so it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's really
Totally.
hard.
And I like what you said about you just reminded me like food can be so emotional for everyone because we all have these histories and these stories. And so I think at the end of the day, I also like for me it felt really personal how these people were reacting to me, but at the end of the day, it's like not personal. It's our own stories that are impacting the way we're perceiving what's going on around us.
Yeah, and not everyone's ready. Like there are a ton of people in the nutrition, the wellness space that aren't really ready to hear that like like eating some sugar isn't the end of the world, and sugar
Yeah.
isn't really addictive. It's a lot of it is our relationship to sugar, or if we're like not properly fueled the entire day, then yeah, we might like overconsume it to a place of not feeling well, but that's like not the sugar itself. It's all of the other things leading up to it. And so, and people aren't ready to hear that message. People aren't ready to hear, like, I have clients who still believe in like calories in, calories out, and will like, I have to try to get them to understand that it's like way more complicated than that, and that not eating enough is really an act of self-harm, like trying to frame it that way. And then like eating enough is an act of self-love, and it's just hard. It's all wrapped up in weight stigma and fat phobia and all of that kind of stuff. I could go on forever about it. So, yeah.
This has been such an awesome conversation. I have learned so much and really loved chatting with you all about it. And yeah, we should definitely do another episode, because just right there, what you mentioned about like, body image and weight stigma and fat phobia and all of those things would be like a really interesting conversation, I think, in itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like it's big in the recovery world too. A
Mhm.
lot of people even go alcohol free at first just to lose weight, and then
Yeah.
it can get into like this dangerous territory where if they're not losing weight in whatever amount of time they think they should be, it's like another motivator to say screw it, and like, why am I doing this anyway? You know what I mean? So it's just, there's so much there. I mean, it's just like the triggering foods and stuff like that. There's a lot going on with body image in our world, and how that affects like even the reasons why we drink too, to kind of escape some of those societal pressures.
Okay, so I am wondering, can you tell us about your programs, what you offer, and how people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that opportunity. So I am the Sober Rebellion, thesoberrebellion.com, or on Instagram at the Sober Rebellion. Make sure there's a THE in there. Someone else is a Sober Rebellion. So um, my signature program, I would say, is for people with 90 days or more of continuous sobriety, or those that don't have any concerns with alcohol. That would be like my 12-week-ish program, where we create like a customized integrative nutrition and lifestyle plan, tailored to your personal symptoms, your personal goals, including goals specific to recovery. So we would go through like dietary health history. There's like this like 300 plus questionnaire that will sort of help guide me in areas of your body that need the most repair. It's like it's really integrative. It's really a great program. So we'll work on that, like with nutrition, lifestyle. A lot of the stuff that we covered today would be foundational work, and then we'll level it up with more specific like hormonal balance, or like immune, whatever you're kind of dealing with, autoimmune stuff. So like mostly nutrition to kind of support or enhance or level up your recovery. And then I can also help with like sort of life coaching stuff, with like attaining goals to, like I said, like really live your life with purpose that you're looking for in recovery. And then I also offer recovery coaching, just like a private, personalized one-on-one coaching for people who either don't align with 12 steps or prefer to stay like confidential with that. We do like, that's almost all recovery focused for like people who are new. Like I said, we don't want to do too much too soon. We're just going to kind of get used to being alcohol free, maybe do some nutritional strategies to help with cravings and making sure that we're kind of on the right track, but it's more recovery focused. So those are my two programs. I have a free download on my website that'll get you started with nutrition for recovery and curbing sugar cravings. So if you go to my website, thesoberrebellion.com, it'll be there for easy download.
Oh, amazing. Well, Steph, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I really learned a lot and really enjoyed having this conversation with you, because as I mentioned, like I've developed an interest in it for my own personal health. And this is the first time that I've had someone in this realm on the podcast. And I just feel like we could do a whole other episode. So maybe it'll be a 3-part series.
I love it. I would love to come back. It's fun chatting with you.
Amazing. So nice to chat with you too. And I look forward to just kind of seeing and following what you do in the sober world. I think you're doing amazing things and going to impact so many women's lives through it. So
I hope so. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.